Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take the sources you send us, dig in, and pull out the key takeaways so you can get informed quickly. So today we're diving into a really foundational text, a summary of the trusted advisor.
Right.
You, our listener, asked us to explore how to build, stronger, more trusting relationships, especially in that client-advisor kind of context.
Exactly. And this book, it really gets to the heart of, well, a lot of questions professionals grapple with, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, how do you actually become that indispensable person for your clients? How do you maybe expand how you work with them?
Or get away from just haggling over price all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, fundamentally, how do you build relationships where clients genuinely feel seen and valued?
Okay.
So our mission for this deep dive is basically to unpack what it takes to be that trusted advisor, and really importantly, how trust itself, that absolute bedrock, actually develops.
Okay, let's unpack that then. What does it really mean to be a trusted advisor? According to these authors, anyway. It sounds like maybe it's more than just being good at the technical stuff.
Oh, it goes much deeper than that. The core idea they keep coming back to is valuing the relationship itself more than any single transaction.
Right, the long game.
Precisely. They use that great story about David Falk, the sports agent, and Michael Jordan.
Ah, yes.
Falk apparently sometimes waived his fees, without even being asked, because he has the bigger picture. He knew building that long-term trust, showing that commitment to Jordan's overall success was paramount.
And it clearly paid off.
Massively for both of them. So the key takeaway there is that prioritizing the relationship, it creates a much more solid foundation for, well, everything else.
That makes sense. It shifts the focus. So what defines these trusted advisors? What are their key characteristics? It sounds like a particular mindset.
It absolutely is. And they've laid out some really insightful attributes. First off, they're fundamentally client-focused, not self-focused. It's about the room, the client.
Okay.
They also treat clients as individuals, with their own unique situations, not just as like out in type A.
Not just a role.
Exactly. And what's really interesting, they argue that being adept at diagnosing the real problem is actually more valuable than just having deep technical expertise.
Understanding the what before the how.
You got it. It's about really getting the client's challenge.
Right. Diagnosis first. Makes sense. What else did they point out?
Well, they also talk about having a competitive drive, but it's channeled into serving the client better.
Ah, an internal drive.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's this focus on always doing the next right thing, rather than being rigidly tied to specific, predetermined outcomes.
I'm flexible.
And they emphasize having a strong internal ethical compass. Doing the right thing because it is the right thing.
Yeah.
Not just for, say, organizational brownie points. Their view on methodologies is also telling they see them as tools. Adaptable tools, not rigid rules. And finally, they really believe in the cumulative effect of quality client interactions. And they see selling and serving not as separate things, but as like two sides of the same professional coin.
Interesting.
They even touch on how, while you keep professional and personal separate, a truly deep connection often involves some level of, personal understanding. It paints a picture of a partner, not just a vendor.
Okay, so that gives us a good picture of who this person is, but how do you actually do it? How do you become one? The summary mentioned 3 core skills.
That's right. These are the practical abilities you need to cultivate. Number 1, earning trust. Number 2, giving advice effectively. And number 3, building relationships.
Let's start with earning trust. That seems foundational.
It absolutely is. And the authors are really clear. Trust isn't something you just get. It has to be earned.
Yeah.
And deserved consistently. You have to actively show you're trustworthy.
Proactive. And didn't they have another story here about one of the authors, David Maister, needing a lawyer himself? It wasn't the fancy firm that won him over.
Exactly. That's a great illustration. He was apparently getting all these standard sales pitches, but one lawyer was different.
How so?
In their first chat, this lawyer just focused on understanding Maister's specific situation. Then, completely unsolicited, he offered to send over a detailed explanation of the whole probate process, key steps, priorities, everything.
Ah, giving value first.
Precisely. That act of freely sharing helpful information with no strings attached, that's what built the trust. It really boils down to having that long-term view, understanding reciprocity, the give and take,
Yeah.
and genuinely caring about the other person's interest.
That really resonates. Okay, skill number 2, Giving advice. Now, this sounds like it's not just about dumping information on someone.
Oh, definitely not. They stress that giving advice isn't just a rational, logical thing. They call it an emotional duet.
An emotional duet. I like that.
Yeah. You have to be really tuned in to the client's emotional state. I mean, think about it from their side. Choosing an advisor, especially for something important or sensitive, it carries personal risk for them.
Right. Their reputation, maybe even their job could be on the line.
Exactly. If things go sideways, they're often the one who takes the heat. So naturally, they're going to be cautious, maybe even anxious.
That completely reframes it. It's not just about having the right answer. It's about understanding their feelings, their vulnerability.
Spot on. To really diagnose and help solve their problem, you have to understand their sensitivities, the emotions involved, maybe even the internal politics they're navigating. So no matter how brilliant your technical solution is, delivering it well means understanding that human element. Clients often need reassurance as much as answers. They need confidence.
So how do you give advice that actually lands well, then?
Well, they highlight a few key things.
Yeah.
Choosing your words carefully, maybe even rehearsing how you'll phrase things to avoid sounding, arrogant. Asking really good questions is also vital, guiding their thinking, helping them connect the dots. And being politically savvy, sometimes that means letting the client own the solution so it gets accepted internally.
That's subtle but smart. Focus on the outcome, not who gets the credit. Okay. And the third skill, building relationships. Seems obvious, but what's the specific advice here?
Well, it's more than just being friendly. It's about showing real understanding, thoughtfulness, consideration, support. A key principle is go first.
Go first.
Yeah, like offer help or do a small favor proactively. Make an investment to build that initial bridge of trust. Another big one is show, don't tell.
Like those examples they gave, the saddlebags for Wells Fargo, the pizza.
Exactly. Those are memorable because they're creative, thoughtful actions. They show you see the client as an individual and you're willing to, think outside the box for them.
Definitely makes an impression. Any other relationship principles?
Making sure your advice is actually wanted is crucial. Don't just jump in with solutions before you've really earned the right.
Earned the right.
Yeah, it's like in any relationship, isn't it? You need to show you understand their situation, their feelings about it, before you start prescribing fixes. And finally, just say what you mean. Be clear, be direct, avoid hints or assumptions. Misunderstandings are absolute trust killers.
Okay, clear communication. Got it. So we know who a trusted advisor is, the skills needed. But what is trust in this specific context? It feels like it's more complex than just reliability.
It really is. They break down its key characteristics quite nicely. First, trust grows over time. It's built on accumulated experiences, not usually an overnight thing.
Right, it's earned.
Second, it's both rational and emotional. Rationally, they trust your competence, your expertise. Emotionally, they trust your support, your dedication, maybe even your courage to challenge them when needed.
Both head and heart.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Also, it's a two-way street. The client has to participate, offer their trust back. It requires reciprocity. And inherently, trust involves risk. There's always the potential it could be broken. Interestingly, they also point out that trust works differently for the client and the advisor. Being able to trust others is necessary, but not sufficient for being trustworthy yourself. And finally, trust is personal, deeply personal. We trust people, individuals, not faceless organizations.
That really hammers home the human element. Okay, now the summary laid out a 5-stage process for how trust actually develops. Can we walk through those?
Yeah, this is where it's really practical. The stages are engage, listen, frame, envision, and commit.
Okay, engage first. What's that about?
Engage is all about making that initial connection, that spark that makes the client actually want to talk to you about their needs. They're investing time, energy.
Their valuable time.
So they need to feel there's a decent chance you can actually help them. And specificity is key here. They engage when they believe you could help with their specific problem, not just generally.
Got it. Signal relevance right away. Stage 2 is listen. We talked about this as a core skill already.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And good listening is what earns you the right to stay involved. But they warn against two common mistakes. First is listening too rationally.
Irrationally.
Yeah, focusing only on the facts and missing the emotional cues, the subtext. Listening for trust means hearing the feelings behind the words. It shows you care.
Okay.
And the second mistake.
Passive listening. Good listening isn't just sitting there quietly, it's active. It involves, verbal nods, positive body language, showing you're truly processing what they're saying.
So being fully present.
Totally.
Well,
fully present, empathetic, showing you understand both with words and, well, how you hold yourself.
and they give that helpful list, didn't they? Good listeners probe, listen for the story, empathize, summarize, cut distractions, keep the client talking, make eye contact.
Right. And what they don't do is just as important. Interrupt, jump in too fast, editorialize, leap to conclusions, judge, solve it before understanding, take calls.
It sounds so basic, but it's so easy to get wrong. Okay, stage 3, frame. What's the idea here? Framing is taking all that complexity, the client shared the issues, the feelings, and helping shape it into a clear problem definition. One that offers both rational clarity and maybe a new emotional angle.
Crystallizing the issue.
Exactly. They say this is often the hardest stage, but maybe the most valuable. It's about finding the real core of the problem, which might be hidden.
And there are two sides to it, rational and emotional.
Yeah. Rational framing is about boiling it down to the key variables, maybe using a diagram or a concise statement. But emotional framing is just as vital. It's about carefully addressing the feelings or the politics tied to the problem, acknowledging them so they can be dealt with constructively.
That sounds tricky.
It requires sensitivity. The goal isn't just understanding the problem, it's helping the client see it differently, logically and emotionally. That's where the breakthroughs often happen.
How do you do that without, making things worse?
They suggest a technique called naming and claiming.
Naming and claiming.
Yeah. It involves sort of acknowledging up front that it might be tough to talk about,
Okay.
taking responsibility for bringing it up, and then stating the issue clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Addressing the elephant in the room, basically, but gently.
Okay.
And a huge part of this is getting rid of blame. Initial problem descriptions are often full of it. Marketing isn't helping. We don't have the budget. Blame just gets in the way.
Right, it's unproductive.
The aim is to reach a blame-free problem statement everyone can agree on and own together.
That's a big shift. Okay, stage 4 is envision. So once the problem is framed, you don't just brainstorm solutions yet.
Not quite yet. Envisioning is about collaboratively painting a picture of the desired future state before diving into how to get there.
Okay, defining the destination first.
Exactly. It boils down to 3 key questions. What are we really aiming for? What will success actually look like, feel like, and how will we know when we're there?
Mm-hmm.
This helps clients really clarify their true goals. It can also kind of unlock new thinking, bring some creativity and freedom into the conversation.
Like that United Research example, using questions to help clients imagine the ideal outcome.
Precisely. It guides them to think beyond the immediate problem. And, sometimes even after defining the problem and envisioning the future, a client might decide it's not worth pursuing. Mm-hmm. Envisioning helps clarify those priorities too.
Makes sense. Clarity on the why before the how. And the last stage, stage 5, is commit.
This sounds like more than just agreeing on next steps.
It is. They make a distinction between commitment to actions and that deeper emotional state of feeling truly bought in, invested.
The emotional commitment again.
That's the focus here for trust building. This stage involves a series of conversations about potential roadblocks, what everyone's willing to do, who needs to be involved, roles, information needed, check-ins, deadlines, all that practical stuff.
Managing expectations.
Crucially, yes, being crystal clear about what you will do, what you won't do, the boundaries, how you'll communicate reports, milestones, how success is measured.
The goal is a joint personal commitment. Something that strengthens both the rational side of the plan and the emotional connection in the relationship.
This whole framework is incredibly insightful. But the summary also asks, what's so hard about all this? What makes becoming a trusted advisor challenging?
Well, one big thing is the perceived personal risk. Being open, maybe a bit vulnerable to build that deeper trust. That can feel uncomfortable, risky for some people.
I can see that.
But the authors argue that, finding the right balance and practicing these skills is key, and that taking appropriate risks can actually create more intimacy, a stronger bond.
What else?
Another hurdle is focusing too much on just the technical stuff, the content, thinking content is king. But expertise doesn't matter much if the client doesn't trust your judgment or your motives.
Right. Trust comes first.
And lastly, there's often this feeling that the whole trust-building process just takes too long, that it won't fit the budget or the timeline.
Yeah, we don't have time for that argument.
But the counter-argument is that clients actually value that time spent in real dialogue, in counsel with them. And building that deep trust is often the best way to generate long-term value and more business down the road.
That's a really important point about the inherent value in the process. Okay, now they bring up this fascinating analogy. The Lieutenant Columbo approach. How does Columbo fit in?
Yeah, it's a surprisingly good analogy, isn't it? Columbo, the detective, he kind of embodies some key trusted advisor traits. His sort of disheveled look, his casual manner, it puts people off guard.
Disarming.
He has this knack for drawing out information, confirming his hunches. But he does it through personalized engagement, not some rigid script.
Right, one-on-one.
And his real genius is how he subtly flips that typical expert versus novice dynamic you often get between advisors and clients.
How does he do that?
He's always praising the suspect's intelligence, downplaying his own knowledge. Just one more thing, which makes them lower their guard, maybe get a little cocky, and often reveal more.
Lowering inhibitions.
Exactly. He neutralizes expectations, subordinates his ego, all in service of getting to the truth, or, for an advisor, serving the client's real needs. It helps move things forward.
Humility, curiosity, making it safe to talk. I like that. Okay, finally, they gave us that quick impact list to gain trust. Actionable things.
Yes, 11 really practical tips you could start using tomorrow. Things like really listen to everything and paraphrase back to show you got it.
Active listening again.
Empathize. Genuinely acknowledge their perspective. Notice what they're feeling and maybe carefully share a bit about your own relevant feelings. Build a shared agenda for meetings that fosters a we're in this together feeling. Take a point of view. Offer an opinion to get discussion going.
Don't just sit back.
Right. Take a small personal risk. Share something relevant about yourself. Ask about a related area of their work or life, showing you care beyond the immediate task.
Broaden the scope.
Ask great, open-ended questions that let the client lead the framing. Give away ideas freely. Expertise grows when you share it. Return calls and emails incredibly quickly shows you value them and their time. And maybe the most crucial, consciously relax your mind before meetings. Be present. Focus on them, not just your own agenda.
That is fantastic practical list. Okay, so wrapping this up, our deep dive into the trusted advisor really shows that trust is the absolute foundation for strong client relationships.
Absolutely. And it's not passive. It takes specific skills, earning trust, giving advice well, building the relationship, and following that clear development process.
Engage, listen, frame, envision, commit, and understanding that trust is both rational and emotional.
Exactly. Adopting that client-focused mindset is just crucial. It's about moving from just transactions to real partnerships built on respect and understanding.
So for you listening, here's a final thought to mull over. Look back at that quick impact list. Which one of those trust-building actions really jumps out at you right now? What's maybe one small change you could make starting today that might make the biggest difference in your client relationships? Something to think about as you reflect on how these ideas might reshape your own approach. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.